San Francisco is a city renowned for its scenic beauty, cultural diversity, and thriving economy. But beneath the surface lies a devastating reality that many choose to ignore: homelessness. Despite San Francisco's ranking as the third wealthiest city in the world, with more than 276,000 millionaires and the most billionaires per capita than any other city, its 2022 point-in-time count, or PIT count, reported that roughly 8,000 people experience homelessness in San Francisco on any given night. However, a recent report from the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing suggests that 20,000 people experienced homelessness over the course of the entire year of 2022. What are the root causes that have led to San Francisco's homelessness crisis? What is it like to be unhoused in the city? And what can we do as a society to advocate for the unhoused community and eradicate homelessness for good? From 2009 to 2019, the Bay Area as a whole has produced roughly 1 new home for every 3.5 new jobs. This has led to an inadequate supply of affordable housing to meet the demands of San Francisco's people.
If you look at the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s in San Francisco, we were building 10,000 new homes per year for a long time. Right now, it's about 2,000 homes per year. So we've seen a significant drop-off of housing production in San Francisco, again, since the 50s, 60s, started in the 70s. And at that exact same time, we've watched homelessness start to go up. We've watched relative price of housing start to go up. All very, very predictable and a reality of the outcome of the decisions that government and people have made.
It's also really overcoming NIMBYism. So this whole not in my backyard thing, I think is probably the second biggest reason that we have so many problems solving this issue, because when an entity comes together and says, okay, we're ready to build housing, and if it's not a permanent issue, it's because the neighborhood rises up and says, we don't want those people in our neighborhood. So they can either massively delay, which costs a ton of money, or block it altogether.
I think of it as kind of the biggest shame, certainly in this country, that we have the money, the resources to completely eliminate homelessness, and yet we're okay with people suffering and experiencing trauma every day living on our streets. The simple solution is not just building homes. Obviously, we need more affordable housing, but that's a good example in that with affordable housing, there needs to be political will. There needs to be resources to build this. There needs to be changes systemically to what does zoning look like? Are we okay allowing, granny units, or additional units, even though the neighbors on the back end might not be their preference, right? This change to not in my backyard. I don't, we need more housing, just not next to my house because I don't want my property values to go down. We all need to make sacrifices so that the folks that are living on our streets can find their own home.
Well, people bring up the racism/homeless issue and the correlation between the two. Yes and no. On the yes part is if we want to go way back to really, really root, I'm talking about deep root causes. It's the inequity in education that has allowed the Black African Americans in this country to not be able to be considered for well-paying jobs or decent paying jobs. Now, if we want to use that route, we can use that, and you follow the flow chart, and they'll show why we have such a high percentage of African Americans unhoused, because this goes back 100 years to the root cause. And now we can add discrimination in workplace. And while you're looking at all the homeless, and you're trying to figure why there's so many Black homeless, go over to the Twitter building and stand outside the Twitter building and count the number of Black employees coming out of there. There's your correlation.
The people who are living in tents on the street once were children. They got lost. Something happened there, and that's what gets in our way. But there are children that are being born into families today that if we don't invest in them, they are the next generation of chronically homeless. It's in the pipeline.
The problem is that the pipeline is still open. We still have new people falling into homelessness all the time. All you have to do is go down to UCSF and out by Lake Merced and see the number of vehicularly housed people and how that has just exploded in the last 2 years. And we're facing a potential recession right now, so the number of people might even balloon more. So catching those people early, or catching them even before they fall, is so vital, because we know once people become evicted, you read that book, it is a depressing downward spiral that almost no one escapes. So we want to catch them early. I knew someone who worked with unhoused families here in the city, and they were telling me 2 years ago that for every family they placed, 2 more would rise up to fill, to have a need. And that's untenable. So we not only need to deal with the existing problem on the streets, we need to stop the pipeline.
What we often overlook about the unhoused community is their humanity. Like anyone in this world, these are human beings with resilience, aspirations, and endless potential.
A dream to have a quiet life at least, and comfortable living, It's not as beautiful a house that we wanted, but just being safe, That's what the most important that we wanted, that we were safe.
Would love to go back to school, which I'm doing, and I'm trying to complete a bachelor's degree just for myself. It's just something that I want to do to be able to offer my daughter, for her to be proud of me.
My life dream was always to be a musician, because my mama was a gospel singer and we listened to her every morning, so I already knew what I was going to be.
Now that I'm getting older, I'm more along the mind frame of like, I want to actually have a place where I can grow a garden and, just kind of like, be an old person, you know what I'm saying? Enjoy, my time,
Some of the greatest barriers preventing people from moving out of homelessness are the stigma, marginalization, and open hostility that they face.
Friends that have psychological, behavioral, mental illness issues are really treated very poorly, and they almost exist like feral animals, and people are okay with that. I think the shunning and the distancing and that really impacts people a lot. It makes them feel truly worthless, or like there's no impetus or no desire for them to try to be normal, try to integrate. I mean, a lot of the antisocial behaviors that you see are people resisting or channeling a lot of what's thrown at them on a daily basis.
The fact that they think that we're all just like ignorant drug addicts, or we're crazies, because everybody has a bad day, and yeah, granted, a lot of us do drugs, but a lot of us have to do them. It's like, I can't get up in the morning if I don't have them, because it's like I just won't get up. Like, I'll just be like, I'm laying there and I'll just sleep for days and days and days. And in order to give the energy to actually move, I have to do drugs. It's not something that like I'm proud of. It's not something that I'm fucking not proud of either. It's like, it's just something that is, Like, I'd rather lay here all day and like, because when I lay down and I lay perfectly still, I can force myself to not shake. It's like when I sit up and start moving that it really kicks in like bad. But if I'm laying down, like laying flat on my back, just like relaxed, like I'll stop shaking and stop moving and it'll be all cool. And I won't get this in my vision all day. This is basically my house, right? So I got everything, I get comfortable in my house. So I take everything out of my pockets and just throw them on the ground and like, have everything sitting there.
Not everybody who works can get themselves housed. Because of my disabilities, I can't go and do construction anymore, or things like this. And because the state's taking their sweet ass time with giving me disability, I can't even count on that. So I have to do things like I have to make jewelry, or I have to teach a class, or I have to make a piece of furniture, or things like this, to be able to make money to be able to survive.
The 2 master's degrees, one in curatorial studies, one in critical theory, purely because of economics. That's why I ended up out here. You know, it was very difficult for me to find work, and still kind of is. The art world is a really small pool, and we're competing for a limited number of jobs. So.
I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, I used to believe the same, like, yeah, they're lazy. And then I had to hit homelessness. That's when I understood that it's not that we're lazy, it's because we're going through a lot and we're actually trying to keep up with life. There's a lot of discrimination against homeless people, and when homeless people try to get a job, then, oh, it's because you stink, oh, it's because you just don't qualify for it, or you don't have the background of a person who's graduating from college and from a good, wealthy family. And there's a lot of barriers. So it's not easy to just get a life and just like get a job and stuff like that. It's not easy to get on your feet.
These stereotypes fail to capture the true identities and experiences of unhoused individuals, portraying homelessness as a homogeneous experience. The reality is that every unhoused individual has a unique story, and understanding their experiences is the beginning to building the bridge out of homelessness. What is it like to be unhoused in the city?
I've been on the street for about 30 years. And no, we just try to survive in here, you know. How are we going to get out of it? How are we going to survive? Now I'm used to it. I don't even think of it, and we're just happy what we are, you know.
We became unhoused on August the 1st of 2018. And that was right before my daughter started 3rd grade. That was heartbreaking for me as a mom, because I felt like I was failing my kid. Didn't matter about me, I was failing her. So I just persevered and I struggled.
Lo más duro es de conseguir lo que es el vital líquido, y por el alimento no, ¿verdad? Porque el alimento se consigue con facilidad, pero lo que es conseguir el agua para hacer las necesidades, eso es muy difícil, porque tiene que ir uno a buscar dónde conseguir el agua en esas cubetas. Cada 2 o 3 días hay que andar buscando el agua para bañarse o hacer la comida, y eso pues lo veo muy complicado. Corre el riesgo de cualquier peligro porque prácticamente uno está en la calle, no hay seguridad de nada.
Having to pee in cups, always going to like fast food restaurants and getting a large cup so that you basically have a toilet. Always have to have wipes or something with you and like bags to dump it in, which is like so embarrassing. And then being in the parking lot and being a woman and trying to use the bathroom in a cup, and then like trying to look around to make sure nobody sees you, because people don't really know what you're doing, but they stare at you. And so that just feels disgusting. Experiencing housing instability while pregnant, it just adds to the stress of the pregnancy, because the pregnancy is stressful enough, especially when you're not getting adequate care. You're always feeling safe, being robbed and things like that. When you're pregnant, you feel defenseless, because as a mom, you always want to protect your child, and not having a place to live, being on the streets or the car, you don't have a form of protection.
I remember that it wasn't a time between when my mom and my dad divorced, and my mom depended a lot on my dad, so them breaking up meant that my mom had absolutely nothing to do and she didn't have a job. So we ended up in the streets. I'd get out of school and I would go to my mom, because at that time I remember she was doing a little bit of cleaning, and I went with her to help her clean because I had nowhere else to go. And my mom had to take care of me, so I would go with my mom to her job. And when we were done with that, we would go and spend our times in parks, and we would just look at people pass by. And I remember just seeing them go into their houses, and I was very sad because I didn't have a place to call home. One of my mom's boss decided to give me a backpack because she had a spare backpack. So I remember that I took that backpack to my first day of school because I didn't have anything else to take. And it was like I'm really grateful for the little things that people did, because no, they didn't notice that it made a lot of difference in my life. It's been a rough situation. There's a lot of things that I remember, like not having enough to eat, not having like a meal at night, and just waking up hungry, because I remember that sleep was my meal. It was rough, but for me, there's no point in giving up, because life will just continue moving on, and there's people that are gonna help me, but I think I have to do it on my own.
The stories we have heard are the stories of our neighbors. We have the responsibility to advocate for their basic human rights, including their rights to housing, opportunity, and dignity. What can we do as a society to advocate for the unhoused community and eradicate homelessness for good?
One person can't do anything at City Hall. They laugh at you. 2 people, you go there, they laugh at you. 3 people, they laugh at you. You go to City Hall with 5 people, they will sit down and listen to you. It's about numbers. And the more numbers you can get, the more they'll listen to you. They'll get out their cell phone and actually listen to you. So that's what you can do, is by being an advocate, keep up with the legislation, the proposals, the laws, follow these methods and proposals on Zoom, and speak your piece, but speak it with a group. There's so many reasons why someone can be homeless. You know, you can just miss one paycheck, and that will snowball with the interest that you got to pay because your car note is late, and things just start happening and falling, and people get exaggerated and say, the hell with it, I'll go live in a tent. And just understand that everyone's not drug involved, everyone's not a drunk, everyone's not mentally impaired. There are plenty of people out there that don't have these challenges, but we tend to think that these people took a left turn in life. No, life took a left turn on them.
60% of successful shelter exits happen as a result of family and friend reunification. 60%. So it's not a silver bullet. It's not for everyone, but there's a real element of relational poverty as a form of poverty that can be a death sentence for some of our unhoused neighbors that's overlooked by many providers, seen as a nice to have. You know, food, water, shelter, clothing, housing, you need that to be fully human. That is the base of Maslow's hierarchy. But you also need love, you need belonging, you need social support, you need a community to provide that security, safety net, that social safety net. And that's often missing and overlooked.
People who are homeless just didn't have the same opportunities of so many other people in the community. They need opportunities to be able to take one step and put it in front of the other. We need to start in prenatal care, and we need to invest in families and pregnant moms, and we need to help them get what they need so that their children will have the same opportunities. They should have the same opportunities as a child that's born into a rich family.
I honestly think that if people started taking some of this whole idea of like tolerance and moving it into the right places, instead of using it as a blanket statement to further other agendas, I think it would be really wonderful. I think that if we use tolerance how it's supposed to be used, it would be a good thing. You know, if we really started caring about each other and really started like, you know, I've never had anybody stop by and be like, well, hey, are you okay? You doing all right? How is everything? You know, other than people from a food pantry, you know, and that's kind of sad. That tells a lot about our society these days.
It's easy to ignore problems that are so huge that it feels like there's nothing that we can do about it, right? But if you get out there and you actually spend time getting to know people who are experiencing these problems, that changes things, because then there is that connection. And then you realize that even in this small, tiny act of having a conversation with someone, treating them like a human being, acknowledging their need, is so incredibly transformative. And that's because you were willing to risk the proximity, the closeness to the issue and to the people experiencing the issue. And that can change lives.